At this point, let's get a reaction from some legislators. We're speaking to Kabataan Party-list Representative Renee Co. Good evening. Good evening, Congresswoman.
Good evening. Maraming salamat po sa pag-imbita sa programa ninyo.
Thanks for joining us so late. But I'm sure you were also watching the hearing all throughout this evening. First things first, what did you think?
Well, the arguments of the defense are expected because, again, ample opportunity has been given to the counsel of President Duterte to lay down kung anong reason bakit hindi totoo yung charges, which is crimes against humanity, for his role as indirect co-perpetrator for the war on drugs, which killed 30,000 people, no, more or less, here in the Philippines. As we notice, no, full of cherry picking arguments, full of defense saying that this is all tough rhetoric, no, not to be taken literally, but it doesn't hold water doon sa strong arguments ng prosecution, not only basing it on speeches, but holding internal documents, saying that there are targets and there are evidence to say that they are neutralized by the Davao Death Squad and later to be implemented on a national level, which resulted in the arbitrary killings of many victims of drug use, of drug war, that has spread fear among the Filipinos, and their families. So for us, despite the fact that the counsel Kaufman continues to grandstand in this forum, I think this is a sigh of relief for victims who are, looking at the defense and not seeing any strong evidence. Sana po makahinga rin kahit papaano yung mga biktima sa kanilang strong case yesterday, and moving forward.
Congresswoman, let me just set the record straight. The 30,000 that you cited is, of course, the figure from human rights organizations. The official figure from the administration, from the government, was closer to 6,000. And in fact, today there was another figure that was thrown around by Attorney Kaufman, 5,281 deaths in operation. His point being, and I'm not sure if you remember, he showed a slide at this point, his point being the number of deaths in operation was only about 3% of the total police operations conducted, anti-drug police operations conducted in the period from July 2016 to Feb 2019. What did you make of that?
We give strong credence to the findings of human rights organizations that provide that number, yung 30,000. The Kaufman and his counsel and his team can put forward that number, and they should be able to explain how the internal processes led to that tally. But when it comes to human rights organizations who document the killings left and right that happened since President Duterte entered his term, a lot of these police operations either happened using a different category or declared deaths that resulted in a different manner or used different weapons, etc., that can lead still to the number of 30,000. So I think because na-veto ng matagal ng human rights organizations, and ito yung naramdaman ng mamamayan na especially when kinonsider natin yung pambansa or the national scale of these operations. That's why ito ngayon yung kailangang sagutin ng defense ng maayos, how they're able to arrive at that tally.
One thing that I thought came across quite powerful in terms of the defense's arguments is that when is when Attorney Nicholas Kaufman, said that there's no smoking gun, that there's not one demonstrable incident that shows direct order as far as the killings of these 49 incidents that were presented to the pretrial chamber. He also, I guess, was casting doubt on the causal link between Duterte's speeches as well as the killings on the ground. Of course, I know you're not a lawyer, but what did you make of that? You didn't think that that was also a strong argument?
Well, I am a lawyer, but I have
I'm so
no
sorry.
practice. No,
I totally missed that. I'm so sorry.
it's okay. But I have no practice when it comes to international law. Uh, and
Pero as
and
an
I'm also
argument, does it hold water?
uh, I think that misappreciates the charge, no, of President Rodrigo Duterte, which is that he is an indirect co-perpetrator. No, so even though no hindi niya hawak yung baril, no, or there's literally no memorandum that goes, this person kill him. We have sufficient evidence on hand to portray the causal links that establishes that when there are speeches or even orders made by President Duterte, uh, there are events and consequences that would occur, and internal records would shift and change. No, so because this causal link, no, is established, or at least the prosecution, no, uh, provides that narrative or that establishment. I think you can't say that definitively strong yung argument that there is no smoking gun. Uh, and in many cases, no, in different jurisdictions, when we appreciate yung criminal liability of one person, syempre, in criminal cases here in the Philippines, no, uh, may kabigatan talaga ng pagtingin, no, ng ebidensya, na it's not just circumstantial evidence. But here, no, that causal link is not just circumstantial evidence. No, there are different records, etc., that tend to prove, no, that it exists. So, for now, we will of course wait for the appreciation of the International Criminal Court. Paano niya tatimbangin yung dalawang yon? No, but for me, matibay-tibay, no, yung causal link na na-establish ng prosecution.
The other point of contention was the word neutralization, or to neutralize. See, Attorney Kaufman made the argument that neutralization does not mean to kill. It means, it means self-defense if their own lives, if the police officers' own lives are in danger. He even cited a legal document that says it may include capture, surrender, or other acts to subdue the suspect, but it does not outright mean to kill. And related to that, the fact that na-interpret ng iba yung neutralize as meaning to kill should not be on former President Duterte. What do you think of that argument?
Yes, there are different cases that has interpreted neutralize differently. I agree with different assistants to the counsel for the prosecution that a Supreme Court case defining neutralize as is pending with the Supreme Court actually would have helped the arguments of the prosecution greatly. No, but if you look at the documents, no, there are there's evidence to say that neutralize is meant literally, no, kapag na-dispose na yung tao or if they're killed. One such instance is between the two government officials that was in the PRRD list. One was arrested, no, prior to the death. And that arrest and also their subsequent detention did not change that tag to neutralized na siya, no? Nagbago lang yung kanyang pagkatag, no, when that government official died, no, when he was killed. So that argument was put forward with the prosecution din kahapon, and even though no may ganyang argument, and I think in the opening or in the statements of the defense, no, ginamit din niya against the or ginamit niya for the client, no, which is PRRD, no, na neutralized quote unquote daw ni President Marcos Jr. si former President Rodrigo Duterte in the evidence submitted, no, and how police operations appreciated that word and used it in internal records. It is meant, no, to dispose of that person or to kill, no. So despite no yung ganong argument na may difference in treatment, kailangan pa rin tumbahin, no, yung nakalagay and yung change doon sa records that only happened noong May namatay na.
The issue, I think, is also that there's no document anywhere that says, you know, if I say neutralize, it means to kill.
Yes.
I think that's the point that he was trying to make. I mean, Kaufman. But the other thing about it is I don't know if you caught that tail end of Attorney Kaufman's submission on the merits of the case presentation. He brought in President Bongbong Marcos. He said basically that the killings had continued under his term, that if the prosecutors at the ICC recreated their bar charts in the 2 years after Duterte stepped down, meaning Marcos period na, they would realize that the killings had remained high, and in fact, he said na they might run out of space on their computers because the bars would be so high. He also said, how come with these killings in the last 2 or 3 years, allegedly, how come no one has taken that case to the ICC? How come none of the victims are crying accountability? Could I have your reaction to that, please?
Well, first of all, I think it's deplorable that that argument is made in the first place, because it's also the observation of human rights organizations here. But that doesn't mean that President Rodrigo Duterte should not face his culpability over how he designed the war on drugs, now how bodies piled on top, one on top of the other during the start of his term. For example, sa amin sa Makabayan, with the Makabayan Bloc, and even human rights organizations that we'd worked with, we can affirm that drug killings did not stop when President Marcos Jr. Started his office. No, it continued, and in fact, the killings of activists, killings of human rights organizations, environmental workers, environmental defenders, etc., they all continued. And that is our continuing critique with the administration of President Marcos Jr. But it doesn't mean that the critique, no, of the killings, and we still stand by the great amount, no, and the worst human rights record of President Rodrigo Duterte, should lessen, no, or be judged differently because yung ating panawagan at laban para sa pananagutan kay President Marcos Jr. is going is not as different, is going differently, no, especially since under President Duterte's term, umalis din siya ng ICC. So, mahirap na ang recourse ay sa ICC when up until now, we have not rejoined, no? And President Marcos Jr. has made no efforts to rejoin. Although sa Makabayan Bloc, we have passed, no? Or we have filed a resolution last week,
Yeah,
no?
we covered that.
Saying
House
that
Resolution
kailangan mag-rejoin
809.
tayo sa international or sa Rome Statute.
House
Nonetheless,
House Resolution 809, urging the government to take steps to return to the Rome Statute, and rejoin ICC. You say that it represents a vital mechanism to ensure justice. But what do you say? The argument on the other side is that our local courts are capable of prosecuting these cases, are capable of handling high-profile, complicated cases. I was just speaking to Greco Belka, the former PACC chairman, and he said as much. Our local justice system is more than capable of handling these cases. Pwede naman i-prosecute, but dito dapat the local court should be the one to handle it because he's a Filipino. What do you have to say to that?
I think we have years, no, of evidence. We have years of practice and reality to show that that is not the case. No, our justice system is incredibly broken because these families have actually been clamoring, no, and filing cases, administrative and judicial, left and right, since nawalan sila ng kanilang mga mahal sa buhay. There are many reasons why it doesn't prosper. Either it gets dismissed at the administrative level, or matatransfer yung police officer in question to a different jurisdiction, making it more difficult to pursue, no, continuously yung pananagutan ng specific police officer na yon. They are bribed into silence, no? Our courts would take too long para mag-process ng criminal liability, etc. This is the talking point then of many of our victims who felt that they had no recourse other than to go to the International Criminal Court. And hindi naman basta-basta rin yung pagpunta nila doon, but rather they are pinpointing a specific figure in government who is designing, no, and in charge of the entire operation, which is President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. Because despite the fact that yun nga, yung mga pumatay sa kanila, yung mga police officers, different circumstances, these officers have been protected, no, provided political immunity with the different statements, or even the bureaucracy that our victims have to navigate para lang makamit yung hustisya. So, I disagree with the argument saying that kaya namang makamit yung hustisya through the local courts. It has been years since the victims started trying that, and they've been continuously failed, no, by our justice system, which is why, no, and at the end of the day, the Rome Statute exists because it is a testament to the different failures of judicial systems across the world that have failed to prosecute yung crimes against humanity and different types of crimes against peoples. So that's why, no, when we are actually for justice, for accountability, we still echo the call na kailangan nating mag-rejoin, no, and we have to re-sign with the Rome Statute. We have to join the International Criminal Court and be compliant as well with the different customary international laws on justice, as we should be.
I see. I get your point, Congresswoman. There are some concerns, though, that if we do rejoin the ICC, if we do ratify the Rome Statute again, that instead of it becoming a court of last resort, that we, outsource all our high-profile cases to them. Anyone can make the argument that they don't trust the justice system here, that it's incapable of prosecuting, those who committed wrongdoing. So it might set a precedent, is what some people are saying. Is there any concern about that at all sa Makabayan Bloc?
If you actually look through the Rome Statute, there are safeguards so that the scenario being described does not happen. So there ought to be, no, processes that have been started at the local jurisdictions. There ought to be showing that hindi yun nagiging sufficient, no, and only kapag nagkaroon ng ganito, and you portray that in the case, aakyat, no, or not aakyat, a recourse, no, a last recourse can be made to the International Criminal Court. And the exact reason why prior to the through the reading of the charges, no, that we're doing right now, merong preliminary hearings on the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. Kailangang depensahan ng nagme-make ng case to the International Criminal Court na tama yung kanilang recourse doon. No? So, rest assured actually na hindi basta-basta pwedeng umakyat lang at the International Criminal Court. No? Kailangang may level of exhaustion pa rin na gagawin sa domestic judicial system na present sa inyong mga sa state nyo, and if available na meron ding mga regional courses na, for example, at the level of the European Union. And if that doesn't work, and if that fails, you can go to the ICC. So may ganong safeguards that the prosecution actually established in their case. Kaya tayo nag-proceed ngayon here. It's just unfortunate that up until now, may ganun pa ring argument, no? When there have been multiple findings and legal experts that have established that yes, the ICC has jurisdiction not only because yung the crimes that President Duterte is being charged of rather, ay within the period na member pa rin tayo, but rather na meet nila yung requirements necessary for a case na ilapag sa ICC, which is that they have exhausted yung recourse at the judicial system domestically and wala silang nakamit.
So may guardrails. You have to prove that you have exhausted your remedies on the ground first. Congresswoman, how much support do you think you'll have for this bill? House Resolution 8509, did I say? 809, sorry. 809,
yeah.
Urging the government to return to the International Criminal Court. How much support do you think you'll have in Congress with this?
I think we'll garner some support. Well, in the first place, we were a member, no? And incumbent President Marcos Jr. was a member of the Senate that ratified the Philippines, no, signing on to the Rome Statute, no, and therefore putting us under the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. In fact, he voted in favor of the ratification.
When he was a senator.
Yes, when he was a senator back in 2013. So, the same legislators that signed on this are also some are still in office. But at the end of the day, the one decisive in this discussion is the president himself. We actually had a discussion with this during a privileged speech of Representative Laila de Lima last week or this week about how the ICC or the proceedings at the ICC will start this week. No, I asked, no, ano po ba yung unang step na kailangan gawin? At this point, no, despite the fact that we filed a House resolution, the House of Representatives actually has no role, no, in the resigning of the Rome Statute or in the ratification of the President signing on the Philippines into the Rome Statute. What we can do best is just urging, no, the president to do so, because at the end of the day, ang decisive po dito ay ang presidente. No?
Exactly.
He can consult with the DFA, and it's a step, no, that he will most likely take, no, because they're the part of the executive. Pero ang decisive, ang nasa constitutional power to sign onto it, to sign a treaty, no, is the president. So ang may bara dito, as we see now, is the president. So we continue to challenge him and also concentrate public opinion na if indeed, no, President Marcos Jr. is an advocate for justice, he ought to, at the most immediate time, no, sign the Rome Statute again so that we can be part of the ICC.
I know in one of my first questions to you, you basically said, yes, there were killings under this administration, but that doesn't negate the fact that there were such killings as well under the Duterte administration, which is what he's being litigated for at this point. But yung if the killings have continued, should they be investigated as well?
Yes. In fact, no, to whatever authority my representation can provide, no, uh, I'd like to be one of the advocates, no, para to bring into justice lahat ng mga naging biktima ng pagpapaslang ng Administrasyong President Marcos Jr. Because, well, the reality is, no, we're not a member of the ICC. So whatever inabilities of our domestic courts or local juridical systems fail to do so, wala tayong recourse right now until we get to be a member. And in fact, I think that's one of the reasons why President Marcos Jr. continues to refuse the rejoining of the Philippines as one of the member states that signed on to the Rome Statute. Kasi alam niya na once he does, no, and the Senate ratifies it, there will be groups that will file cases at the ICC. Of course, kailangan i-clear nga yung mga guardrails or safeguards as provided in the Rome Statute. But given the left and right, no, na denials of courts, for example, in providing protections towards activists that are fighting different causes, and also different non-governmental organizations or grassroots organizations being slapped with terrorist financing charges that, you know, not only them but international organizations labeled to be arbitrary. There is the use of law to harass, no, advocates. So I foresee that that's the reason na hindi nagjo-join tayo muli sa ICC. So nonetheless, we will continue to push, no, our rejoining of the ICC, and kung ano man, no, the accountability at pananagutan dapat ng administrasyong ito sa inhustisya sa mga mamayang Pilipino.
I hope that lays to rest the arguments that this is all just a political, demagoguery, as what Attorney Kaufman said, and political revenge on Duterte. Just to be very clear, what you said was that you are willing to, you want to push for the investigation of the killings that have continued under the Marcos Jr. administration. Congresswoman, one last question for you that not related to ICC but kind of is related. Since we're talking about House bills, kamusta naman po yung impeachment bill? And I'm sure there's talks in Congress at the moment. Many people tell us that there's not much more appetite for an impeachment. But I recall that you were one of the only two lawmakers who interpolated Vice President Sara Duterte on her, if I recall correctly, it was the 2025 or 2026 budget. But in any case,
2026 proposal.
2026 yes. Proposal, budget proposal. Where are you on this, and what do you think might happen to that impeachment complaint?
I first join your hope that this lays to rest, that this is specifically politically motivated, because the victims of the drug war have no motivation other than justice, no, makamit yung hustisya sa pagpapaslang sa kanilang mga kamag-anak. And similarly, yung mga pinaslang din ng mga kamag-anak in the President Marcos Jr. administration want nothing but that same justice, no. So we're pushing for it, we're fighting for it. And also, ang track record ng Makabayan Bloc, no, ay lahat ng sangkot dapat managot mula at hanggang sa tuktok. That's why we filed impeachment cases against both President Marcos Jr. and VP Sara Duterte, because they have had records and evidence against them to say that they are not only complicit but are drivers, no, of corruption, of taking public funds for their own personal benefit. So unfortunately, the complaint against President Marcos Jr. has been dismissed for insufficiency of substance here at the House of Representatives, which we continue to criticize because sa amin, no, sufficient in substance siya kung babasahin lang natin yung patakaran at yung pamantayan na nakalagay sa House rules. No? The House had to create a motion out of nowhere to justify na kailangan na mamamatay ito at the sufficiency of substance level. Here at the VP Sara Duterte impeachment complaint, maraming ang mga usap-usapin siya because sinabayan nito ng announcement ni VP Sara Duterte ng kanyang pagtakbo, no, as president in 2028, and then there are different political actors as well signifying, no, a change in opinion compared to how they voted back in the impeachment proceedings in 2025, no, against VP Sara Duterte. But for us, no, hindi naman po nagbabago yung merits. In fact, nadagdagan pa nga yung merits to say that VP Sara Duterte betrayed public trust, no, by abusing, misusing confidential intelligence funds of her two offices, OVP and the Department of Education, with her not only attitude but her holding of the responsibility of public office, asking her staff, no, to not comply with legal orders and summons in relation to questionings of the budget and how it was used, no, etc. So sa atin, tumiba yung arguments. We continue to push that legislators vote in favor of and in line with principles, no, with a principled stand, no, and not whatever political interest na kailangang mag-play into come 2028. Of course, ongoing battle yan, and that's why we're preparing for the proceedings that will start, no, next week. No, next week, the House Committee on Justice will be convening to discuss the form and substance of the impeachment complaints laban kay VP Sara Duterte. So we're preparing and we will be, you know, opening or putting forward our best foot forward in relation to this.
How significant is it that NUP issued a statement saying that their members will likely not vote for the impeachment? And I believe NUP is the largest party within the lower house.
Well, right now, no, despite that last year may 2/3 na nakamit na signatures yung fourth impeachment complaint to VP Sara Duterte, I think it might be difficult to reach that same number, no. But still, the requirement by the Constitution and the rules is still 1/3, no. I think for the part of the majority na yung nagbibilang talaga, may confidence sila na ma-meet yung number na yon. That could have been shaken by the NUP announcement, pero sa amin, hindi pa naman sarado ang lahat. Ang amin, kailangan bumoto, kailangan umakto ayon sa lohika, no? At ayon sa anong nararapat sa bayan. And we're not only convinced, no, but we are confident with the strong arguments of the impeachment complaints showing that VP Sara Duterte held her office in a way that is incompatible, no, to the principles of transparency and accountability as expected of her office. Lalo na ang nakalagay dyan, no, dapat kung may confidential or intelligence funds, gagamitin mo for confidential intelligence purposes, di naman nagawa yun, dapat i-account mo ng maayos, di rin naman nagawa yun, etc. Kung aayon lang tayo sa paano dapat umakto ang public officials, I think it should be clear that VP Sara Duterte has her impeachment complaint, no, has merit and should be transmitted to the Senate so that it can go to trial.
Okay, we'll be covering that, of course, but for now, we'll leave this conversation. Thank you so much for talking to me again. That was Kabataan Party-list Representative Renee Co. Salamat, Congresswoman.
Maraming salamat po.